Hello! So, the FSR500 has been released for Flight Simulator. It's developed by FSReborn. It's actually a kind of an unlabeled replica of the Piper M500. So let's have a look around it. You can see it's absolutely wonderfully modelled. This aeroplane is the same, or the developer is the same developer that created the Sting S4 for Flight Simulator. So that was kind of their first go at a complicated aircraft in the simulator, and this is a step up in every regard, and we'll get to why in a few moments. So when we look around the modelling, you can see it's incredibly well modelled. So the material modelling is next level. It's kind of, we're becoming very used to seeing this level of modelling, aren't we? But this aircraft not only looks the part, but it works properly as well, and it has failures. And it has really detailed systems modelling as well, which is no small feat because it's a glass cockpit aeroplane. It's got very modern avionics. Okay, so rather than... Oh, actually, let's have a look inside before we leave. I was going to say, rather than keep looking around, let's go in the cockpit, but we'll go and have a look inside the cabin as well. So you can see the interior is modelled just as well. So for those of you that are fans of the photorealistic aircraft, this is not going to disappoint. It's very good. Okay, so let's get the drone camera back away from the aeroplane. Put the controller to one side, press the insert key to get back inside the aeroplane. So I am going to have to turn around in my seat and climb through to close the door. Otherwise alarms will go off when it comes time to start the aeroplane up. So we'll just watch the animation for that. Oops, I think I just missed the click on it. There we go. So everything has nice sounds, everything's animated nicely. Okay, we'll climb back through into the pilot seat. So our main thing we're going to look at to begin with is going to be this tablet. So you can see straight away it's showing you the status level of various components of the aircraft. And that gives you a hint that lots of things can go wrong with this aeroplane, and they will. So we can also go and look at our flight plan. So you can see it says it's empty at the moment, and we can import from SimBrief. So we will do that. So I'm doing a really short flight from Wickham Air Park over to Elstree, which is a route I've done several times for demonstrations of airplanes. It's just a nice short route. We can look at data on the departure. So obviously there is no big tower at Wickham that's giving that data, or certainly not in the simulator. It does in the real world. But we can pull up the weather for whatever airfield we like. So if we went for EGTB, for example, and press enter, and we still find nothing. So anyway, you can see an alternate METAR down there for EGKK, which is quite clever that it's even able to do that. So the other thing we can do is go to overview, and then because we've pulled in from SimBrief, we have actually got the operational flight plan. Yeah, so you can, if you're doing an instrument flight and you're using a bigger airfields with departure and approach routes, then you're good to go with that. So it has Navigraph integration as well. So if we go and look at the route, you will see the SimBrief route pinned onto the Navigraph map, which is quite cool. And if we come back, you can obviously then pull up charts if there are any available. So for these airports, I don't think there are, but that works, is exactly as you might imagine. So then you've got the ground ops, and this is where it gets really interesting. So this aircraft, you can set the weight of the passengers, and you can load in real time. And if you want to, you can simulate the cars coming up to visit the aeroplane and all that kind of thing. So we can put things on the aeroplane as well, the static features outside. We can even put a red carpet on the aeroplane. So if we go and look outside now at what we've just done. So obviously we've closed the door already, but you get the idea. So if we go and remove all of those features again, it's quite cool that they've got the connections there, that you can't have one with the other there. If we go and look in the cabin comfort, so if you haven't got passengers on board, you can see, you can feed them, and you can look after the cabin air temperature, that kind of thing. And this is where it gets, I think, this is where this aeroplane steps up a little bit. You've got maintenance, so you can break things. I've broken the generator several times while learning how to start the aeroplane, and I've had to replace it. So it's cost me a fortune in pretend money. The one thing that I thought is a bit lacking is I haven't found a book yet. So I've not found a guide document to start the aeroplane. You buy this from the marketplace in the simulator, and even on Microsoft's own site there's no book there. And I've looked on the FSReborn website, I've not found anything there yet either. So whether the book is to come, I'm not sure. Okay, so if we have a look through realism, there's lots of failure modelling that you can either switch on or off. So we're going to leave everything on. And there's lots of FAQs as well, so you can, find out answers to common questions of things you might have done wrong. The one I can't figure out is I keep continually getting a takeoff configuration warning, and I'm not sure what I'm doing wrong. Okay, so the settings as well, you can set units that are used. There's this thing called action cameras. We're not going to use them, I don't particularly like them, but at the moment, say for example you start the engine, the camera will whiz to outside and you'll see the engine starting up. The only problem I found with that is there's some logic holes in it where if you have broken the engine and it can't start up, you're stuck in that camera view forevermore. But anyway, we're not going to worry too much about that. You can alter the rate at which things wear out, so you don't have to fly something for months on end before it eventually fails on you. Anyway, should we go and get it fired up? Oh, it's worth pointing out, looking around the cockpit, all of the breakers work. Yeah, that's how I discovered I'd broken it earlier. The breaker popped out for the generator, and then I looked in the panel and discovered I had destroyed the generator. Okay, you can lift the arms, which seems a bit of a misnomer because this panel isn't actually operable, which is a bit of a shame, but it's nice that they're animated though. Okay, let's get this thing started. So first thing we do is put the battery on. And then the next thing we're going to do is go and put the nav light on so people outside know that we are starting the airplane. Should we go and have a look? See what those nav lights look like? Then it's a bit too bright today to see them easily, isn't it? There, you can just see that one. Okay, so having turned on that, you'll get the primary flight display as fired up. And that will take a little while for it to align, so it's doing the AHRS alignment. There's a lot of automated systems on this aircraft. So we'll just hang on for a moment until that is aligned before we do anything else. Just checking my controls are in the right places. Let's just go and check the levers here. So the fuel condition lever's in a good place, so is the throttle. Okay, so let's go and get started. So we put the fuel pump on manual, we put the ignition on manual, then we pop open the push start and we start the engine. Let's see what the volume levels are like for you to be able to hear this. I'll turn it right up. So we wait, and again this is where having a manual would be invaluable. I'm not sure of the speeds to wait for the propeller, so we're just going to wing it and introduce the fuel now. And hope that things don't get too hot. So prop RPM is coming up. The NG is in the green now. ITT is dropping down into the green. That's all looking good. Okay, so the propeller's running. So you can see the start button's gone off, the ignition system can now come off, and the fuel pumps can go to auto. We can go and turn the avionics on now, we can turn the generator and the alternator on as well. We can switch the screen on, and the engineering system flips over to the navigation display, or the multi-function display I think they call it. I think is this the G3X? I'm not entirely sure with all of these glass systems. Or glass cockpit systems. Okay, so we'll calibrate the altimeter while we're here. We're showing pitot heat is off, so that's over here. So there's the pitot heat. And it's complaining about takeoff config, so I'm going to put flaps to 10 degrees, and it's still showing. I wonder what it is complaining about? Surely you wouldn't need full flaps for takeoff. No, you wouldn't. We go for maybe 10 or none at all. What could it be complaining about? I'm not going to dwell on it too much. Bleed air? It's not going to be bleed air, is it? Not for takeoff. This hasn't got cowl flaps, has it? Yeah, I'm not going to worry too much about it. Anyway, let's taxi out. So, do we need any more lights on? We'll wait till we get to the runway for the rest of the lights, shall we? So, what does that's going to be emergency systems of some kind? Unless that is needed. Nope, that has no bearing. See, this is where we really need a book, and we haven't got one. Okay. So, off the parking brake. And of course, this is Flight Simulator. A van has appeared in the nick of time to have his couple of minutes of fame, or a few seconds of fame. So you can see the route we have plotted is already in the, although we pulled in from SimBrief, is already in the G3000 or G3X, sorry. So I think that is a function of the tablet. There's an option where you can allow that to happen or not. So you can have it so the tablet is not connected to the aircraft navigation system, which would be more realistic, I guess. Okay, so parking brake on for a moment. Back overhead, we're going to go and turn on the strobe lights and the landing lights, and I think we're good to go. Parking brake off. Now we're going to get a takeoff config warning. I don't know how to solve it yet, so we're going to put up with it for the few seconds of accelerating along the runway. So we need to get to above 70 knots before we rotate. It's a bit windy today, so I'm having to hold this against the torque or the wind imparting on the engine. Let's put the head tracking on so we can look outside easily. So gear up, flaps up, let's trim it out to climb on its own without us having to pull back all the time, and pull the engine back to about 75%, and we're going to execute a right turn. So yes, what else is there to say? It's a glass cockpit aeroplane from this point on, so we could engage Autopilot and have all the fun in the world with it. So we'll do that in a moment. We'll just turn around by hand. So while we could be flying GPS, we'll get it started flying the GPS route, so we can pre-arm nav mode. So you can see that's come up with GPS now next to roll. So if we level this out, we're at 2,500 feet, so let's go and set that as our target altitude on the altimeter ribbon there. So let's go Autopilot on. Oh, we're almost up to 3,000, aren't we? So let's go and do that. So 3,000 feet we would like to get to. And it's in GPS, it's still in roll mode. Is it going to level us back out? We're going very fast. Oh, we got a bit of a shake going on there. That was interesting, wasn't it? So I'm just slowing us down to get us out of the airspeed warning. So that was interesting. This plane is fast. So do I need to cycle the altitude to make that happen? If we go for a flight level change, so let's open the throttle. So the marker has appeared on the indicated airspeed ribbon, so any excess power we now have should turn into vertical speed, and it has. So again, this is one of these things where it would be wonderful to have a book. There are several videos online giving demonstration flights, but there's nothing really, you know, kind of bookish to look at, which I would much prefer. So let's have a look at our route here. So we're just coming on to the original track. So what I think would be fascinating to do would be to switch over the CDI mode to VOR navigation and just have a play with that. So 11375. So before we do that, let's go into Nav1 here. So we want 11375, transfer that to active, put this back on heading mode. So I'm just going to turn off head tracking for a moment so we can concentrate on this. So we're going to spin the heading bug.
Airspeed.
We've got the airspeed warning going on. This plane is so fast. There we go. So I pulled back to 50% throttle and it's just gently decelerating to just below the warning speed. Okay, so we are in GPS mode at the moment. We're going to go back to heading mode. I've put the heading bug the direction we're going. So we're now in heading mode, which means we can switch over the CDI and play with the course. There we go. And now on the display here we can go to PDF options, PFD options even, and we can pull up the bearing. So that's the Nav1 information, which is good. So we're going towards the BNN VOR, Bovingdon. We are 3 miles away, 2.9 miles away, 50 degrees on the way. We're holding at 3,000 feet, which is great. You can see that on the map. Everything looks good. So, let's have a look at this aeroplane from outside. It's a really nicely modelled plane. And I love that so many of the systems appear to work. Oh, we have somebody tracking us. I may have to change servers, because they may ruin the video if they want to have their couple of minutes of fame. This keeps happening to me. I'm going to end up flying on with the multiplayer switched off, aren't I? Anyway, let's see how we get on. So we're just approaching the beacon. We would like to leave the beacon on 107 degrees. So let's change our course to 107. And let's see what this will do. It's always fascinating to me. So we're in heading mode at the moment. So I guess we'll have to put heading mode in to cross our path. So we'll wait until it straightens up, and then we'll put nav mode on and see how well it does at capturing. So if we were to do, yeah, it's going to do both at the same time. So because it can't capture at the moment, I think that's pretty standard functionality for this family of avionics kit, where it shows both modes. So it's doing heading mode until it captures the VOR, and then it will switch over. But it's not going to though, look, because look at that compared to what we're doing. That's because I've got the course wrong. So if we wanted to be on the 107 degree track, we would have to track across to it. So let's go and give ourselves an intercept track. So we'll fly back over the, just shows if you don't check when you're putting numbers in. And again, I often fall foul of this. If I'm trying to do something and talk about it and think at the same time, that's one too many things for me to do. So you can see VOR is flashing, it's captured. So it's switched over to nav mode now. So if we have a look and go to head tracking mode, we should be able to see Elstree. It's not very far away. In fact, we can check, can't we? Look on this map. This is interesting, look, it hasn't... This is having a real problem going into the VOR accurately. Or not into the VOR, but away from it. Maybe I got the bearing wrong. So we're going to go back to manual. So we're going to turn the autopilot off. So we are approaching Elstree. You can see the beginnings of London in the distance. It hasn't quite rendered a lot of it yet. So we're going to turn to 80 degrees soon. It's a shame that we can't get a visual. If we scoot across the cockpit, there's the runway, you can just see it. So if we come back over to our side, so we need to slow down.
Check gear.
So if you pull the throttle completely back to idle, it has that fail-safe where it checks for gear. But look how slowly this aeroplane slows down. So we may end up having to use some side slipping or something to slow the aeroplane down.
Check gear.
So I've just introduced a bit of throttle to stop that warning. But it's got a fully electric or electronic throttle and pitch system, so you really don't have to control anything in terms of the propeller. It's rather clever. So speed is coming off slowly, but not as quickly as I might like, and we're climbing as well. So there's the runway. So if we put the gear down, which we should be able to at this sort of speed, we'll soon find out if we brake it, won't we? It's quite slow to come down, isn't it? So now we have some drag. I can't use the flaps yet. I might have to do another turn to slow down, you know. So let's turn this way. And time for flaps now. Gone for 20-degree flaps straight away. Hopefully it will help us drag the aircraft down. Where is the runway? There it is. So we're going to overshoot a little bit, but not too much. So Elstree doesn't have any fancy radio equipment to help us in. So at about 90 knots, it's a little bit fast, but we can lose some more speed. As we decrease in speed, we can get full flaps. Let's just out of interest, while we're this far out and flying along fairly level, let's try pushing the nose to one side, bit of opposite aileron. It's quite stable. Wind it back out again, let it fly in the direction it wants to. Okay, we're going for full flaps. So we'll continue, just open the throttle to hold the speed until we can see the VASI lights. It's quite a short runway at Elstree, so we're being careful. I've not landed this plane before, so we're going to find out very quickly if I can land it at all. So we're still too low according to the VASIs. We can see 2 reds down there. We want 1 red and 1 white. And we got 1 red and 1 white, so let's keep an eye on the airspeed. Try and keep this attitude into the runway all the way in. And then just rotate when we get to the apron. It's quite windy today, which is not helping. I'm also a little bit paranoid that we can break things on the aeroplane, so we're going a bit low according to the VASI lights, so we'll keep the nose up for a moment. There we go, 1 wet red and 1 white. We're drifting. The wind is gusting actually. It is quite windy this evening in the UK. Obviously I've wound the time back so you get to see anything, otherwise we would be in pitch darkness. But it's, yeah, it's quite blustery. There's been a big storm passing over the UK the last few days. 10 knots above stall speed by the look of the ribbon for the indicated airspeed. So we'll dive it down onto the runway. Hold it off the runway just to see what happens. So reverse on the propellers, or propeller. Once that kicks in, it's actually quite fierce. Okay, flaps up. And we'll taxi in. So while we're taxiing, we can go and turn off some of the lights. So let's get the landing lights off and the strobe lights off. The pitot heat can come off now. And welcome to Elstree once more. So we're going to park up. This is the Orbex scenery for Elstree. The scenery we had at Wickham Air Park, or Booker, was the Pilot Plus scenery. Go and park in the customs parking space where we have so often in the past. It's a nice convenient place right outside the tower and the restaurant. Okay, parking brake on. And then if we... Now I need to be careful. Let's turn the generator off, alternator off. Fuel pump to off, and then pull the condition lever back. And let's go and watch the animation, see what that looks like. Really is a very good plane. I think the only thing, and it may be that there is a book around, I just haven't been able to find it yet. The one thing it's lacking is some really good documentation, because obviously they've gone really to town on the systems modelling, and it could really do with some really good written procedures. Now it's worth pointing out that it has got the checklists built in, yeah, of lots of things to go through, but I would prefer an actual written document to go through. So we can turn the nav lights off, we can turn the avionics off, and then the battery, I guess. And we're cold and dark once more. So, that was the FSReborn, or FSR500, which is actually a Piper M500, which does exist in SimBrief. So you can actually generate flight plans specifically for the airframe and then load them straight in, as you saw via the tablet. So apparently it uses all the latest tricks for the soft body simulation and all the rest of it, with fluid dynamics and all the rest of it. So yes, it apparently behaves really nicely in the air. As you can see, I had trouble slowing down, but that's just me learning. Hopefully you enjoyed that, and I'll see you again soon.